What is the dumbest thing a customer has gotten mad at you about that was not your fault? I worked for Comcast as a tech. I also ran escalations for my shop, so I have a lot of source material to work from here. Customer gets installed in 2008. Service presumably works perfectly for 3 years. No records of calls on his account, no service calls. This guy has literally never reached out to Comcast with a problem with his service since install. Customer loses channels on one TV. Instead of calling customer service, customer puts in Federal Communications Commission complaint about missing channels. That complaint bounces around the FCC for a few days, gets sent to Comcast corporate, and from there, it takes 2 weeks to both get down to the local level and get a service call scheduled. The policy in our shop was basically to send a tech out, me, and document ducking everything. His appointment is in the middle of my route, but I look up his stuff as soon as I came in that morning. His modem levels were great. His node, basically the network built within his neighborhood, was one of the best I'd seen. Noise floor was low ingress hitting the node. I scanned through his account and noticed that some rate codes were missing on one box. Rate codes are what tells the equipment what channels are authorized on your account. You have things like B1, local channels, B2, higher tier of local channels, starter packages, premiums, HBO, Cinemax, Stars, etc., adult. These are, or at least were, manually set up through customer service, and mistakes happen. And honestly, they can happen both ways. Sometimes the customer gets more channels than they're paying for, but most of the time, they are missing stuff. And the system at the time could run for years with bad rate codes until some random security check deauthorized any that weren't set up properly, which is what happened to this guy. Had the customer called into customer service, any brain-dead CS should have been able to catch this and have it fixed within a couple minutes. The funny thing is, even though I could see it, I couldn't fix it. So I let my dispatcher know what was up and asked her to fix the codes but not send the refresh signal. I run through my route and get to the house. I get screamed at for 10 minutes about how unreliable we are and how we're so incompetent that customer had to complain to the FCC about it. I let him know I'll start working on the issue and start checking basically every connection from the mains to that box. I document it all. Took me about 30 minutes or so. I finally get to the TV and the customer asks me what's taking so long. Me. Oh, per policy, I need to ensure your installation is good and there are no problems with the signal before I can fix the issue. Customer. Well, what's the problem then? You've been at it a while. Me. Your account had a small mistake on it. Just a moment. I send the refresh signal through my handheld. The missing channels pop right in. Me. There you go. I had dispatch fix that this morning. In fact, customer service would have been able to fix that for you when it first occurred. And had this not been an FCC complaint, I would have just called you this morning to verify the channels popped back in and saved you the visit. Sign here, please. My ratings were generally trash because almost every call I ran was cleaning up some other tech's mess. So his low rating really didn't affect me much. Because of course, it's my fault he chose the nuclear option instead of just calling customer service like any normal person. Story 2. They asked me to cut a blind. When I asked for the dimension they wanted it cut to, it was larger than the original blind length. Said I can't make it longer, only shorter, and she lost her crap. Story 3. I worked at a small retail chain down the road from my house when I graduated high school. At the time, it was in the height of COVID, and my store didn't carry paper or plastic bags. Customers had to bring their own. A guy walks up with a cart full of canned goods, unrefrigerated drinks, and 5 boxes of K-Cups filled with 50 per box. The sign on my register clearly says, "Unfortunately, we do not carry bags at this time. Sorry for the inconvenience," written in bright red lettering in all caps. So thinking this guy knew this and could understand English, I cashed him out, ringing up everything. The total came out to almost $250. When out of the blue, the guy asks, "Hey, why didn't you bag my stuff?" I told him, "Sorry, we do not carry any bags at this time," thinking he might have not read the sign. By this point, I had already cashed him out and handed him a receipt. And he stood there absolutely dumbfounded for 30 seconds before saying, "What kind of store doesn't carry bags?" And I said very nicely, "Sorry, sir, but there are signs all over the front of the store, and even a sign right here at my register. Sorry for any confusion." By this point, all 4 checkout lanes were wrapping around the corner of the store, and my coworkers were trying to cash out everyone as quickly as possible. About 10 seconds go by when he says, "Are you sure you don't have any bags in the back?" I say, "No, sir. Once again, I apologize for the inconvenience." By this point, people in my line were starting to get mad. The guy, noticing this, proceeds to demand for the manager, like throwing full-blown adult temper tantrum. Now people are pulling out their cell phones and starting to record everything. I call my manager down, who is immediately jumping to defuse the situation. That's when the guy's wife comes in, who had been sitting in her car waiting for him this whole time. My manager was trying to explain to him that because of COVID, Company policy prohibits us from giving or selling bags of any kind, and that he should have known this before coming in. The guy was now full-blown losing his crap. The wife now comes into the conversation, telling the guy that the way he is acting is ducking ridiculous, and that we need to leave now. The guy protests by sitting on my register counter, refusing to leave without bags. And by this point, my manager has lost her crap. She tells me to wait there and goes up to her office and calls the cops. When the cops got there, his wife had given up at this point and said, "Have fun spending the night in jail, Keith," and drove off in her SUV. The guy, realizing he ducked up, leaves peacefully, and the entire store claps in celebration. By the time I had gotten to my next customer, I had already worked longer than my shift hours, and my manager said she would extend my pay hours so that Adi could help finish the now mile-long line of customers. I put in my 2 weeks 3 months later and still have good contact with my manager, who does most of my job references now. Story 4. Not me, but a friend of mine worked customer service for a credit card company. She said a young guy called and asked why he couldn't use his card. She told him because he had exceeded his $15K limit. Dude was like, "Yeah, but that was for last month. Don't I get another $15K limit this month?" Story 5. This is gonna be good. I am a manager at a smoke shop here in Texas, and let me tell you, I thought working at Walmart at the time was full of stupids. Jesus nuts, they come out more at adult stores. So this older man that used to come in for Delta pens was coming in and getting 2 or 3 pens at a time. At the time, these pens were somewhat decent, but not to the point I'd tell my employees to plug them out. He had bought them with one of my great employees, and yet he didn't test them. We require you to test said product in the store so that we can exchange it or fix it for you so you're not wasting damn near $60 on pens you cannot use. We don't expect anyone to inhale like a train if they don't want to. We mainly ask you to cheek it and not inhale so we can just check if it works. He came back in the next day on my shift. I had already had 2 other people in the store who were some of my regular customers and were just as happy to wait so I can help this guy. He immediately starts yelling at me and starts trying to say that he opened the pens and they weren't working at all. I asked him, "When did you try these pens?" so I can get a time frame so I could possibly get an approval to return them, even though it's illegal to take back Delta products that have already been opened. He responds with, "I tried them this morning." I looked this man dead in the face and said, "I cannot help you considering you didn't try them in the store like we asked you to so that we can help with this problem. Unfortunately, I cannot exchange these because it's illegal on my end to do so, and I will lose my job." Now, granted, I'm still a new manager, but I knew better, especially since he was getting loud as duck with me, and I kept my cool enough to keep telling him the same thing. "If you tested it before you left the parking lot, I could have exchanged it for you. I don't give a crap about the parking lot crap. I want my money back now. You're being a ducking Karen because you won't help me. Do you get off on taking people's money? No, but I'm sure as crap not going to lose my job because you didn't want to listen and try the product so we could have helped you. I'd be happy to give you corporate's number so they can tell you the same thing." Gives them the corporate number. Granted, now there's 4 people in my store listening to me keep my cool and everything. They are all looking at me with a worried yet understanding look. He is going off on me, getting louder with me, and a few of the men stepped up and were like, "Hey man, that's enough. She's a woman, chill the duck out." There's no need for that crap. I got a little big-headed after that LMFAO beside the point, and he was on his way out, and I actually politely said, "You have a good day, sir." I never saw a man wrap around the corner and point his finger in my face trying to get close to me, calling me a ducking Karen, the works, and now all the dudes in the store got in front of him and basically pushed him away from me and out the door saying, "That's enough, get out," type stuff. He left, and the funniest thing was, everyone got the pens that he complained and wanted his money back, and they said, "We're fire," and they loved the way they hit and taste. I guess it was a win-win for me after all. Story 6. Back when I worked at Target, some guy came in about 30 minutes before we closed and wanted to buy a laptop. He wanted to run some obscure software on it for laser tag and got really nettled when I told him I was unfamiliar with the software, and so I couldn't give a definitive answer. Then he started going on about how much he made in a week compared to my paycheck. So I told him something along the lines of, "Well then buy this laptop, and if it works, it works. If it doesn't, it won't hurt your wallet." He really didn't like that, and after some colorful language, was escorted out of the store. In an odd twist of fate, a few months later, the mother of one of my best friends bought his laser tag arena because he ran it into the ground. Story 7. When I was younger, I worked at a place that hosted children's birthday parties. It also had mini golf, which the public would access, alongside the birthday party groups. The hosts spaced out the kids so the public wasn't totally overrun with kids running about through their holes. We offered party favors as part of the birthday party package, but for this particular party, the birthday kid's mom made and brought her own favors for her kid and their friend. Happened all the time. One of the party hosts would stand at the end of the 18th hole to collect the kids' golf balls and clubs before handing them their party favor and game card for them to hit the arcade. I was one of the hosts for this particular party. I, as in the party room, across from where guests exit the 18th hole, cleaning up and preparing the cake to eat after the kids finished in the arcade. I was one of the hosts, so I knew who the kids were and what most of the parents looked like. This woman and her 2 young kids, maybe 5 and 7, pop into the room to check it out for a mini tour. I greet them and ask if they have any questions about the room. She asks some questions, I answer. Blah blah, all is fine. I notice her 2 kids were holding 2 of the favors from my children's birthday party. They were not a part of this party for sure. Still being completely polite, I asked the kids and mom something like, I noticed you have some treats. May I ask where you got them from? Fully aware where they are from. The mom says something like, they were just sitting over there on the counter, pointing to where the other hostess should be. But I can see the hostess went over to drop off a handful of club's balls she was carrying. So this mom just saw them there and figured maybe they were free for anyone. I get that. I said, I'm so sorry, but those are actually for the birthday party that we are hosting right now. I'm afraid I'm going to need those back. The mom angrily says, Really? You're going to take these out of my children's hands? They're children, I said. I'm sorry for the misunderstanding, but yes, these favors were provided by our party mom for her children and their friends. She paid for them herself, and we cannot just hand them out to everyone. The mom, not party mom, was pissed and angrily handed them back to me and said, We're leaving. I thanked them and apologized. But she was still mad that I wouldn't let her kids steal from the party I was hosting. Story 8. I did returns at a department store. You know when you buy a new comforter duvet cover and it comes in those clear plastic bags with a zipper? An old lady ordered one online, and some genius at a warehouse somewhere just slapped a shipping label on that clear plastic bag and sent it out. It arrived at her house with the plastic all torn and ducked up, and the blanket stained and ruined. She and her husband brought it to the store to return it. No problem, normally. But this lady was enraged. She and the husband both went off on me, screamed at me, and acted like I was the idiot who shipped the damn thing out. No matter what I said, they talked over me and insulted me. It was a busy Sunday afternoon. I was alone with no backup and a line of customers watching the whole thing. It was humiliating. A 2-minute return turned into a 10-minute ordeal because she just kept going off. I tried all my usual ways of placating upset customers, offered to exchange for a blanket of equal value, offered to help her order a new one from our kiosk in the store, offered to call the online sales customer service and get her free shipping on a replacement. Nothing helped. When she left and I went to put the blanket in the returns bin, I hid back there and cried for a minute. Only time that ever happened. Duck you, Myrtle, or whatever your name was. I've never hated an elderly person, but you are an exception. Story 9. One time, an old woman with a very thick Hispanic accent came into the store and asked for what I thought was grass seeds. So I walked her to the gardening aisle and pointed out the grass seed. She looked at me like I just murdered her baby and said, What's this? Not seeds? Sign, you don't understand? Garage sign for sale. Okay, not a very nice customer, but we're a Dollar General and don't have signs that specifically say garage sale. And I told her we have poster boards and big letter stickers as I'm walking her to the arts and crafts. When we arrived at our destination, she was just as annoyed as before and said, This isn't it. Fine, it's okay. And you left your customer at the front. Just go, just go. I sprint back to the front to start ringing out the customer I left behind, and she comes up, and I scan her items and tell her the total, and she says, How? And I tell her the price of each item. She points at the letter stickers and says, No, this is $1. The system says 2. Then her fat-ass 40-year-old daughter tried being smart and said, If it says $1, you have to honor it, or it's false advertising and you guys can get in trouble. Now they're holding up the line, and my cousin manager comes over to try and help. The daughter starts arguing with my manager as the old woman walks off, and we're assuming she's going back to take a picture of the price and item because some stalkers are crap and create problems like this often. She walks back with a price sticker for a different sticker set that was priced at $1. That says $1, but that's not the same thing. It's a different brand. The daughter replies, You have to give it to her for $1 because it said it back there. That's the rules. I don't know why you're giving us such a hard time. Is it because we're Spanish? Me and my cousin look at each other's tanned skin and dark curly hair, wondering if she was serious. Ma'am, we're Hispanic too. This argument continues for about 2 more minutes and escalates to them literally insulting us and saying, We don't know how to do our job, and my manager just ended up giving it to them for the price they wanted, but told them that they can never come back. After all of this, I was just curious to see if we really did post the wrong price, and when I got back there, we did. The stickers she wanted were accidentally labeled $4.50. So even if it was in the wrong place, she would have tried getting an item assumed to be $4.50 for $1. It probably doesn't seem like a big deal, but Dollar General is very strict with their prices because it's a dollar store, so wiggling ETH prices leaves practically no room for profit, which will be shown in the end-of-day report and can get us in trouble. Story 10. Oh man, working at the phone store left me with some doozies, but this one takes the cake. I was standing in my store, which was a privately owned dealer of Verizon services. It was around this time that they started really rolling out the device payments, so it was still a mixed bag of contract customers and device payment customers. This is relevant later. Anyway, I'm standing there, and this woman, who is maybe 6 to 10 years older than myself, opens the door and starts screaming at me the second she walks in and all the way across the store as she walks to the counter. She's got a small child with her as well, and she is using all manner of foul language and is flat out raging at me, red-faced and spitting about a problem with her bill. Mind you, I've never seen this woman in my life, nor was she ever a customer at my store, which she herself confirmed. After a few minutes of managing to calm her down enough to get into her account, and my coworker taking his customers to the other end of the store, I see what she means. She was signed up for a device payment plan on her phone, which had set her monthly line access charge to something like $32. $20 access charge plus the phone payment. Mind you, when you signed a standard contract, you had to buy your phone up front, and your line access was $40. Essentially, this woman was losing her mind over the fact that she had been scammed into this device payment plan, and she shouldn't have had to pay a dime for her phone. I tried several times to explain to her that whoever did that had actually done her a favor. Not only did she not have to pay for her phone up front, but they actually lowered her bill from what it would be. She refused any logic that I offered, and continued in a full-blown rage that she got scammed and wanted out of this contract. After attempting to break down basic math with her and getting nowhere, I managed to calm her down again by calling customer service, who said the same thing I said. They also confirmed the fact that she was stuck in the contract, which she was like 6 months to a year into, and she would have to pay off the phone to get another one. At this point, her feeble mind snapped. She went from 60% right back to 100% and cussed both myself and the rep on the phone out, making zero attempts to actually think about anything. She then stormed out of the store, still screaming at me, as she left with her poor child in tow, never to be seen again. I feel bad for that poor kid. Not only is their mom a total git and a terrible example, but they are absolutely going to catch that rage when they get older. Story 11. I worked at the Walgreens Photo Center once upon a time. One of the services offered was the ability to upload your pictures at a kiosk from a CD or SD card. They also had a pair of the world's crappiest, slowest scanners available to scan physical copies of pictures to be digitized and put on CD. So one day, this woman comes in with a binder full of hundreds of print pictures. She says she wants them all scanned and loaded to a CD for a presentation at memorial service at a funeral being held later that ducking day. Now, remember when I said that Walgreens uses the crappiest, cheapest ducking scanners in existence? Each picture would take something like 3 to 5 minutes to scan, if it's scanned properly at all. And the kiosk computers themselves were not fast either. The touchscreen was buggy and frequently unresponsive, and operations were just generally slow. Then, after each picture was scanned, it needed to be cropped and edited before being uploaded to the system. Basically, it would take somewhere between 5 to 10 minutes just to digitize one photo. The kiosks are supposed to be self-serve, but this lady had no ducking idea what she was doing and basically wanted me to do the entire thing for her. Of course, it was my job to assist customers, but what she was asking for was going to literally take all day, and scanning her ducking pictures was not my only job duty. Not to mention that while she was doing this, no one else would be able to use the kiosks. It quickly became apparent that she needed to have taken this project to a professional photo studio or something, and she needed to have done it, well, in advance of the memorial, not to a ducking Walgreens on the days of. I told her there was no way it was going to be done in time, and asked if she might instead just select just a few important or significant pictures of the deceased. No, she wanted them all scanned, even the ones where the dead guy wasn't even ducking in them. So I said fine, but I cannot be the one to do them. I have shown you how it's done, but I have other duties. I'm also going to have to limit you to using just one kiosk, since you can't monopolize both of them for the entire day. She got pissed and wanted to know both my name and the manager's name. Eventually, she left without finishing. I guess having to work on it herself made it clear how absurdly ducking onerous the task was, with nothing but Walgreens' crafty little kiosk, like being handed a paintbrush and told to sweep the floor. Anyway, the moral of the story is, Walgreens sucks. Story 12. A woman requested her work order note that she was hard of hearing and she wouldn't hear the tech at the gate if she was in the wrong half of her house. Naturally, knowing her appointment window ahead of time, she still chose to stay in the wrong part of her room. So Tex sees note, hops the fence, and bangs on her door so she wouldn't miss her appointment. I want to note that hopping the fence means he literally went above and beyond in his customer service. But he did, so she called in wanting to tell me that somebody could have shot him, by which she wanted me to know that somebody should have lost him, by which she wanted me to know that she wanted to hit him. She told me this in case she thought my silence was a lack of comprehension. Similarly, had a woman who wasn't even a customer call because a dude in a company marked van in uniform with company business cards was willing to stop what he was doing when she approached him, explaining that he was setting up external cables for a customer. He gave her his supervisor's card. This woman couldn't even be bothered to note the address, but she was demanding I confirm whether this unknown customer had a text scheduled because she wanted permission to call the cops and/or the Klan. So she wants me to Google all the houses in a 3-block radius, find the neighbors she doesn't even know well enough to name the street they live on, then give this woman that customer's confidential information, or else she intends to lynch the very polite man who stopped what he was doing to explain his presence and give her a business card. Did he ever actually go inside the house? No, he just connected the house's exterior cable box with cable. Ma'am, you really think someone's going to steal company vehicles, uniforms, and equipment to go around hooking up homes with free cable in broad daylight on a Wednesday? You think he's giving away free cable? And you want him stopped? She wanted to murder the free cable fairy. I would have invited him in for lemonade. Instead, I got to stall her long enough for him to get away. Story 13. Woman hired me to paint the entire interior of her home. Ceilings, walls, and quite a few drywall repairs. She asked about how long it would take, and I let her know before we started that it would be about a week and a half to complete. This was a repeat customer who had moved to a new home. She said the timeline was fine. 2 days after I started painting, she asked if I could install all new baseboards throughout the entire house, prep and paint them, along with painting all the doors. I gave her a price, and she said go for it. 4th day on the job, she comes in angry, asking how soon I will be finished. I told her I can't start installing baseboards until all the walls are painted and drywall repairs are complete. She gets even more angry. I remind her that my original timeline was a week and a half for only the painting portion of the job, and she had added 3 to 4 days of work to the schedule with baseboards and doors. She turns red and demands I be finished by the next day because she's moving in. She was not nice about it. I told her that I'm sorry I can't perform miracles and that I will be invoicing her for the work that has been completed to that point, and she could find another contractor to treat like an evil child. She asked me to leave immediately. So I started collecting all my tools and equipment, had my truck almost loaded and ready to leave, and she comes outside with this whole story about how we have had a great working history in the past, and was crying and telling me I shouldn't just quit, and again reiterated that she needed this entire job done by the next day. I again informed her, as I'm unable to perform my job up to your expectations, I'll be submitting an invoice for all work currently completed, and she could find another contractor to fulfill her expectation. She then told me I was trespassing and to leave, and she wasn't paying. I calmly told her I would be placing a mechanic lien on her home if she didn't pay within the week. Next day, she sent me my money on PayPal and ended up selling the house as is half finished. Story 14. I worked at a movie theater. We had a regular, this old man, roughly 500 lbs, and confined to a wheelchair. He was a little brash, but seemed to like me, and I would usually help wheel him into the auditorium or carry his snacks. I didn't mind it, really. He was funny, and it meant I got a break from my usual duties. He eventually started coming with his nurse, an old lady who was a raging Karen. She'd cuss at the teenagers and always demand we give her discounts because your ad in the paper said so. We didn't even run ads. Now my job also included helping him in the bathroom, although she would come in to wipe him off. She'd demand I stand at the door and not allow anyone in while she was in there. One day, their movie was in a bi-level auditorium. The ramp to get from the lobby to the theater was long, but within ADA guidelines. She came out and raised a huge fuss with me, saying that the ramp was too steep and we were trying to kill her for rolling him up the stairs. So, guess who got the honor? I'd done it a few times before, so that wasn't the issue. It was the way she went about it. Karen, ain't you his nurse? Once in a while, they'd come with a teenage girl, the guy's granddaughter. As I'm wheeling up the ramp backwards, they're a few steps back. I hear the girl say something like, "You shouldn't be making him do that." She responded with, "It's his job." The urge to let the guy go and roll back down, knocking her out like a bowling pin, was strong. After that, he didn't come back as often. When he did, he wasn't with her. Apparently, they came back when I wasn't there and tried to rope in someone else. They flat out refused. I think he was secretly embarrassed by her because of the crap she put us through. Story 15. This was a wedding that I had contracted at my resort. Guests were arriving and checking in. It's a hit summer day, and it's raining, but barely raining. It's more of a barely there mist. The type of rain you don't see, but you can feel. Anyway, one of the guests who's arriving calls me absolutely irate and off his rocker over the rain. This man was pissed. It was raining and was demanding that I make it stop because I, of course, control the weather. At first, I honestly thought that it was a joke and laughed at first. No, this man was dead serious and screaming at me over the phone that his hair is too delicate and that it can't get wet because then he will look like a waterboarded rat. He demanded that I make it stop and tell him how he's supposed to get inside as if there's a hurricane going on. I suggested that he use an umbrella so he doesn't get wet, and that pissed him off more because he didn't have one. I then suggested that he could pull up to the covered awning and he would be protected and that the valet could park his vehicle for him. He said no, that was unacceptable, and kept screaming at me. I then told him that if he refused to do that he could wait in his vehicle for the rain to stop and then come in, but that I wouldn't know how long that would be, that I checked the radar, and that from the radar, it would be that soft, gentle, misty rain for hours. And if he did wait, he would miss the wedding altogether. This man was not part of a wedding group itself either. He was a regular guest for it. What I didn't tell him is that I knew it was going to rain because it was forecasted all week for it. And it was raining like this since the night before. I absolutely could have gone out with my umbrella and safely protected his delicate hair, but wild horses could not have dragged me to do so. And I absolutely refused to allow anyone else to go out with an umbrella for him. That mean was screaming at me for 45 minutes over that. Story 16. I worked at Millie's Cookies while I was studying at uni. Our store's setup was a wide counter with all the goods on display. Great for customers to be able to see all the flavors, but a nightmare for queuing as people tended to just crowd around the counter. One shift, a small boy, about 8, arrived at the counter as I was finishing someone else's order. He had a $1 coin to buy himself one cookie. An older couple arrived at another part of the counter about 2 minutes after him, so naturally I turned to him next. The older woman proceeded to say loudly, "Oh, I guess we're not getting served then," to which I replied, "This young man was here before you." You would have thought I'd told her to F off because she then went on to rant about how rude I was, how rubbish at customer service, and, randomly, how she hoped I never went into a caring profession because I clearly have no manners and don't know how to relate to people. From the woman who wanted to push in front of an 8-year-old boy. Incidentally, I've been a healthcare professional for the last 6 years and no complaints so far. Story 17. Customer insisted I give her a Mario game for her son's Xbox. "Ma'am, it doesn't exist. Get me the manager." Manager comes and is furious with me for not helping her. Tells customer I am obviously wrong and looks it up in the computer. Says he sees that we are out of copies, but we will order her one. Watched him use the computer. He searched for Mario on Xbox, but found no results, so he lied. Lady gives me this exquisitely smug look. I later got wrote up for not helping the customer, but whatever, I ended up working there for another 6 months. I used to change the SKUs of full price games and sell them for $5. I'd change them and take them out of the case and put them in the bargain bin. So a crap ton of people got Wii, 360, PS3 games for like $5. It was great. Duck Kmart, story 18. Customer got mad at me because I could barely hear her over a bad connection. I was on a landline, she was not. After disconnecting the call because it was going nowhere, she immediately called back and complained about the a-hole she'd just been talking to, saying, "He said I was bad at making connections." Why the duck was he talking about my love life? You are much more helpful, though. Story 19. I work in a gym/indoor pool facility. Normally, I'm in the gym or teach gym classes, but when we're short-staffed, I'll help out in the women's locker room. Spray the floor in the showers, make sure there's toilet paper, etc., small stuff. When I help out, I wear my instructor shirt, not the staff shirt of the pool area. So it's obvious it's not really my area. Once I was spraying the floor of the drying off area when a very naked older woman tapped my shoulder. I look at her and say, "Yes, do you need help with something?" She looks at me kind of annoyed. "Yes, the water in the showers are kind of cold. Turn the heat up me." Oh, right, I think they're standard on the colder side, but I'll mention it to our maintenance team to make sure it isn't colder than usual. Her. "No, I need to shower now." "Go turn up the heat?" Me. "Well, I can't. I don't have the key to the room where we control the water temp. And I don't even know if it's colder than it should be." Her. "What kind of facility doesn't have showers where customers control the heat themselves?" Me. "I don't know. I don't really have a say in that matter. But I'll take your point to the maintenance and my boss." Her. "Great, but first, turn the water heat up." Me. "I can't. I don't have the key, nor am I even allowed to if I did. You see, I don't actually work in the..." Her. "I'll go put in my hair mask now. I'll need the heat to be turned up in around 20 minutes, thank you." I left the locker room at that point and did bring it up to both maintenance and my boss immediately. They told me the water heat was the standard temp and they weren't going to do anything. Oh well, I went to go teach my next class, and when I was done an hour later, I was informed I'd gotten an official complaint from said customer. Next time I saw her and gave my usual customer service, "Good morning," she just made a face and walked away. Story 20. A water pipe in the theater's basement burst. It was directly over their server. Sparks were coming out of it, so they called our support line instead of their consulate, who supplied the hardware, to ask if they should switch it off. The backup tapes were also unboxed, sitting on top of the server, getting soaked, and they had only been following a random schedule. Apparently, all of this was the fault of our ticketing software. My senior management agreed as we wanted to keep the customer. So we bought them a new server, and an engineer drove up to install, and I spent a number of days rebuilding their missing data as best I could. Since it could never be 100% and some of their customers complained about double bookings, it was totally my fault. Someone got mad and yelled down the phone that our software would not start and the desktop icon wouldn't stay still. Yes, it wouldn't stay still. They didn't know how to double-click and were simply single-clicking, then dragging the icon around the screen. Didn't even get a thank you afterwards. Instead got a complaint and snide comment-filled call from their senior manager later that day. Not me, but I was queuing behind this customer in 2008. A small number of shops started charging for plastic carrier bags. Charges varied from 1 to 3p. This particular were charging 1p. The customer had bought some chocolate and a small drink, which they could easily carry but wanted a bag. They were told there was a 1p charge and they went ballistic, bordering on a tantrum. The teenage girl behind the till had no idea how to handle it, and her manager was hiding out the back, so clearly this was not the first person to react like this. Holy duck, this guy went bonkers. I offered to pay for them so I could pay for my own things and leave, but no, they wanted to make a whole song and dance about it and wouldn't let anyone else be served. Some people simply need a swift knee in the happy sacks. Story 21, I worked at a print shop, but all service was handled by the employees, not any self-service. Thus, one of the typical ways of printing was for someone to send their docs to the company email, and then we'd print it. This lady sent an email ahead of her arrival, listing what documents she needed printed. However, there were no attachments. I did a search of the email history, and she sent an email not too long before with documents under the same name. So I assumed she just needed new copies of these. This was very common for people to reprint past jobs. She came a few minutes later, but I was dealing with another customer at the time, and what that job was taking up a lot of time. She grew impatient, and when there was finally a break with the other customer, I addressed her. She said what she needed, and I handed her the folder with the prints. She huffs and chuffs out of the store, but I think nothing of it. She returns a few minutes later very irate that I gave her the wrong documents. I explained to her that I saw her most recent email, but there was nothing attached. So I searched her address and found documents of the same name that were sent in the past. Rather than realizing her own mistake and now taking the time to provide what she really needed, she instead got completely fed up and then said, "I don't have time for this," and stormed away. A few minutes later, she sent a ranty complaint email saying how she was ignored and treated very rudely, since I printed the wrong documents and nobody asked me to search for old documents. Story 22. I worked at MCD's as an older teen when I took a year off after high school and on summer break between college years. I had a customer blow up on me. He asked for 2 sausage muffins. I simply asked him if he would like those with just sausage or the version with egg and cheese. I always clarify because I've had people order 2 sausage muffins and were expecting the ones with egg and cheese, but got the plain ones. I just want to make sure. He immediately got hostile, yelling, "I don't understand what you're trying to ask me." I was confused but pointed out that we had the 2 versions and just wanted to make sure. He still acted bewildered and confused himself, but then eventually clarified. He wanted the egg and cheese ones. I knew it, but he was still extremely hostile and asked for the manager. My manager approached him, clearly not into his crap. This is relevant. My manager was a pretty young blonde girl, and when this customer was arguing with her and got his order, he grabbed his bag and yelled at her as she walked away, "Why don't you go talk about your sex life?" Then he stormed out without taking his change. Also had a lot of customers blow up on me over the ice cream machine, as if we're trying to keep the ice cream away from you. Yeah, I got accused of being lazy and lying that the machine was broken so I wouldn't have to make them. The ice cream machine is made by a company that has a contract with MCD's, and they're evil. I think the machines are meant to break down. Ours did a lot in the summer when it was hot outside and every order contained ice cream or milkshakes, and a specialist has to be called in to fix it. Literally, none of the employees have the codes and knowledge to do it ourselves. Story 23. We had a sale on a TV that was on Saturday and Sunday. Guy came in on Friday and wanted to deal. I told him I couldn't do it because it wasn't in the system, so there was nothing I could do. He started by pushing to get the deal, clearly not understanding that it was out of my control. Then he told me, take the money, make the sale on Saturday, then he'd be back on Monday to pick it up. Obviously, I can't just take someone's money for a future sale, as he would have no guarantee that I wouldn't just put the money in my pockets and I would look like I was stealing. If I just took the money, that's when he starts going off and telling me that I made his sick father wait in the car for an hour in the heat for nothing, WTF, don't leave your sick father in the car, and that I would make his kids cry because he promised them a new TV. Maybe don't promise your kids something you cannot afford. He then went ballistic, telling me to come outside so he could beat my ass and all that. So I call the police, and when they get in the store, they called him by his first name right away. So clearly it wasn't the first time the guy had problems with the cops. They told him to never come back to the store and told me to call them if he ever came back. Story 24. Got to worked at a golf course. Went out to Ranger one day and these kids, all 19, had a crap load of booze in their cart. I pull up on them and tell them they have to take it all back to their car as they aren't allowed to have it. Liability issues. They aren't yet 21. They ask me if they can finish the hole before they went back to the parking lot. I say sure, but I go sit behind the green and watch them. They finished the hole, and instead of heading to the parking lot, they drove toward the next hole. I cut them off and tell them they're either going to drop off their beer or we're calling the police on them. One of these kids looks at me and says, "Can't we just put it in our bags and promise not to drink it?" I followed them all the way back to the clubhouse and sat there watching as they offloaded all their beer. That was about 3 years ago. This next one was about 3 weeks ago. Currently work in a salvage yard. When a customer brings in scrap, I'm required by law to get a lot of information about each customer, such as name, driver's license, tag number, vehicle details, a hieroglyph, the blood of a virgin, the whole 9 yards. I also have to take pictures of each customer and every item they bring through the gate. Had a customer about 3 weeks ago lose his mind when I took his picture, spouting a bunch of nonsense like I was violating his rights and whatnot. One of our employees knows the guy, and he tells me he's like that because last time he got his picture taken in public, he ended up in prison. Turns out he currently has a couple warrants out for his arrest. TLDR. People are dumb across multiple jobs. Story 25. I wasn't even working at this shop. I was just another customer. I didn't even wear a shirt similar to an employee's. A woman comes up to me and says, "Excuse me, do you work here?" But before I can say no, she asks where something is. She sounded polite enough, so I responded just as politely, "Sorry, I don't work here. The people with the blue shirts do." She got slightly upset and said someone else had pointed at me when she asked for a worker. I looked to my side and literally less than a couple feet away, there was an actual worker. I told her, "I think they meant that guy right there." She then completely lost her cool, screaming various things at me and calling me all sorts of names. The employee tried to intervene, but she just kept screaming. She eventually stops with, "I want to see your manager." I told her to duck off. The employee laughed and she stomped off. Then I just went back to shopping. Didn't see her again that day. Story 26. I'm a dog groomer primarily. A Pomeranian once came in with very tight matting behind its ears that needed shaving out. The client then proceeded to raise hell about why I removed the dog's extra set of ears growing in. No, I am not kidding. Another time, a client asked me to leave off cologne because it made the dog smell too good for too long. Another client asked for a refund because I told them their female dog was a girl, and they were pissed. Another time, someone came in my salon and became very disgruntled. I wouldn't neuter their boy dog on the spot. Last example, I literally have hundreds. Some people have asked me to write a book because it's like eccentricity just finds me, and by far the most common. Because didn't you know, groomers always cause ear infections? A client called me and said she refused to come back because I wouldn't pluck her dog's ear hair, and he got an ear infection 2 weeks prior. Side note, the dog was a schnauzer with the thickest ear hair I've ever seen, and it would have caused significant pain to remove by the root. The vet actually needed to sedate him to do so. I have no idea what she thought I could have done. The kicker though, I hadn't seen the dog in 6 months. Even if I'd plucked it bald, it obviously would have grown back by then. When the dog was coming in regularly, and it was maintained, there were no issues. Weird, right? Story 27. We recently switched to a new computer system at the pizza place I deliver for. First day, everything is a mess. The new system ties every aspect of the order process together, so if one thing is glitchy / not working, everything is screwed. We finally get it working enough so I can actually dispatch on the deliveries that have popped up. I explained the delays to the customers who got their orders late, and for the most part, everyone is understanding, except for one. I get to the address and it's a work crew at a house. The guy I talked to is livid. He goes off about how late the delivery is, cursing, saying we should have called. Phones were down because of the new system, so we couldn't. And in general, the state of the world and how we should be better. I can't even get a word in edgewise to explain what the problem was. When I finally do, he's still complaining as if I can fix any of it. The whole time, he is walking around the front yard of this place, throwing his phone around, not even trying to be reasonable. He finally calms down enough for me to give the total for the order. Come to realize, he's not even the one who ordered. Someone on his crew did, and they aren't there. So he picks up his phone after chucking to the ground for the 3rd time, goes in the house, and calls the guy who ordered to tell him his pizza's arrived. After 10 minutes of the guy continuing to fume at me, the one who ordered finally arrives, pays, And after explaining to me that the guy I talked to does in fact have anger issues, I tell him my side of the story, and that if this happens again, we're blacklisting him. Story 28. So I worked at a chocolate shop in Boston, MA. Someone called to place an order for shipment to Florida. I said, okay, we do require next day shipping and an ice pack on shipments to Florida, so the chocolates don't melt. The shipping will be $30, and the ice pack and insulated packaging will be an additional $8. It's my standard spiel. The person's like, the chocolate's only $22. No, I'll pay for the shipping, but not the ice pack. It will be fine. Yada yada warning, yada yada. When it shows up melted, it won't be our fault. I'm noting it in the system. So what phone call does my manager get 2 days later? Oh, person got melted chocolate? Oh, it's our fault, is it? But look, there's a note in the system they refused to pay for an ice pack. Womp womp. Did I warn them the chocolate would melt? Yes, I did. Do they now have nothing for Mother's Day? No, they don't. Poor them. Story 29. I worked in a call center for Verizon Cellular when the Twin Towers were hit. New York was in my territory. About a week after, I got a call from an attorney that was pissed that he didn't have service. He said he did all of his business on his cell and that the disruption of service was costing him over $20K a day. He was going to sue me and everyone else in the company if I didn't get his service immediately. I told him that there were no signal towers in the area due to the terrorist attack and that we were doing everything we could to establish new signal centers. Then I reminded him that his contract actually stated that Verizon was not liable for providing continual service, particularly when the interruption was from unavoidable circumstances. He blurted out that that was a scam and that nobody has time to read those contracts. My response was to let him know that I thought he must be a great attorney if he doesn't read contracts, and then I dropped our call. On a humorous side note, I had a coworker next to me put a guy that was yelling at him on speaker. The guy asked how much the CEO of Verizon makes a year. Then, without waiting for an answer, yells out, "I'll bet he makes more than $1 million a year." Let me tell you, I could duck up this company for a hell of a lot less than $1 million a year. My buddy deadpan replies, "I'm sure you could, sir." The guy just grunts, "You're damn right I could, I gotta go," and hangs up. Still cracks me up to this day. Story 30. It's so stupid. I worked admissions at a local zoo and I have so many dumb customer stories. But my favorite is one that my coworker and I unfortunately had to deal with. The zoo does Boo at the Zoo every year for 2 weekends, and because it is so popular, we have to close about 2 hours early to set up. We tell people this when they come in, and there are signs posted all over. One day we were closing the front and getting ready to go to the office for a break when a couple stopped my coworker and I and say they were not informed that the zoo was closing early and that they wanted their money back. We both told them that they should have been told prior, and we were a small zoo, so their 4 hours in there was plenty of time to see everything. I also mentioned to them that there were signs out front as well as in the zoo that we were closing early. And I kid you not, this was the exact words said by the husband. "We came to see animals, not read signs." I had to walk away to keep myself from laughing at them and let my coworker handle it. I mean, really, who goes to a zoo and doesn't read signs about animals? Honorable mention has to be the time a lady wanted her money back because one of the exhibits smelled bad, but the rest of the zoo was fine. Story 31. Sold TVs for a couple years around 2010. Customer accused me of selling him a lemon TV because it wouldn't turn on, swearing and yelling at me that he would get me fired, blah, blah, blah. Troubleshooting with him on the phone, I asked if it's plugged in. He said yes, it was to the wall outlet. He's not an idiot. I ask, "It's plug into the back of the TV." Long silence, followed by "It's working now," and click. No apology, and when I decided I needed a career change. Story 32. I worked at a Twin Peaks before, and a family of 5 came to be seated on lingerie day. At least at my Twin Peaks. If you didn't want to participate in it, you don't have to, but you'll be penalized for it with the section you get the next day, which was fine for me. I don't mind exposing myself online or with my husband, but not at my place of work in person. It just makes me feel highly unsafe and uncomfortable, as we've had several girls get assaulted walking to their cars. Lingerie day started after 4 p.m. at my restaurant, and almost all the girls participated except me and one other girl. It just so happened that as I was serving them their food, all the girls went to change and came out in their underwear. This little boy pointed at all the girls and asked his mom why everyone decided to take their clothes off, then proceeded to take off his clothes. His mom flips out and starts cussing me out in the middle of the floor for it, and I just didn't know what to do. I didn't participate in it. I don't agree with it. I only just started working there a couple of months ago, and she said she wanted to see the manager to get me fired for not telling her when there was a huge sign at the front about it. One of the worst jobs I've ever had, and just under working for lifetime as a trainer. Story 33. A long time ago in my hellish retail days, I worked as an area specialist for a large retailer. Lady came in and asked if we had any in the back, Explained we don't warehouse product. If there is any product available, it's either on the rack or in a box, being prepared to be hung on the rack. She asked me if I could check. I explained, there is no back, ma'am. We received the shipment. Plowman pointed to the product I'd been delivered for the day, still in boxes behind me, and then we hang them or steam them, then hang them and put them on the display racks. She asked for my manager. Told her for the department I was the top of the food chain. Asked to speak with the store manager, and I told her to fill out a comment card and put her contact information down, and he'd call her as soon as he saw the comment card. She filled the card out, and I told her to take it to customer service and they'd make certain he saw it. She told me she wanted me to deliver it, and I said, okay, leave it on the cash wrap and I'll deliver it. She left, and I delivered it, straight to the circular suggestion box. Story 34. I was a kitchen cabinet installer. Went to the job, cabinets delivered. I checked the cabinets and checked the layout. Realized the cabinet designer effed up. I had 6 on too much cabinets. Designer measured wrong. Told the client, can't start demo, have to see what the designer wanted to change or fix. There was a 36 floors deep wall, 6 feet from the end of the run, or a cabinet 6 foot too wide to fit. Customer yells at me. It's my fault. She's friends with the designer, and the designer would never do that to her. So designer comes out the next day, yep, that wall exists. So in front of the client, designer tells me to stop being a baby and tear the wall out. I suggest we open the wall first. It's probably load-bearing. Open it in front of the client and designer. It's load-bearing. Supports entire rear of the second floor. Both client and designer start yelling at me, why aren't you cooperating? I felt like I was in the middle of a skit. I apologized for showing up, knowing how to measure, and was very sorry I noticed everyone else's mistake. Told the client I was especially sorry I understood construction and physics, and was smart enough to know removing the wall would make her house fall down. My boss didn't think that was funny, so I apologized to him. Sorry, I'm not as dumb as our designer. Story 35. I used to work at Papa John's for a while. For the first month, I worked phones. I was told by my manager that one of our drivers got in a nasty car wreck while delivering a customer's order, and that someone else would call the customer and let them know since I was busy doing something else. 10 minutes later, the phone rang and I picked it up. Person over the phone said their order never arrived, so I looked it up and found out it was the same order that was involved in that car crash. The employee who was supposed to call them never did. So I told them what happened and apologized for not calling them earlier. That's when they cut me off and spouted any and every kind of obscenity, calling me all kinds of slurs without letting me get a single word in. As they yelled, I just had their order remade, and when it all came out of the oven, they were still yelling. When they finally stopped, I just said, your order will arrive in roughly 25 to 30 minutes. Have a good day, and hung up. I stayed on the phone with that asshat for about 15 minutes total, and I only attributed to about 5% of the conversion. Makes me laugh now, but to say I was pissed is a bit of an understatement. Story 36. When I was a delivery driver at a pizza place in college, we had this customer, and she would order every Tuesday after her yoga class. Nobody liked delivering to her because it was the same story every week. She'd order a half hoagie, which was like $6. There was a minimum order for delivery, which was I think $10. Every week, she'd call in and try to order a half hoagie for delivery, and every week we'd tell her she needs to order a minimum of $10 for delivery. And every week she'd yell at whoever was on the phone that it was bullcrap before adding cheese sticks or something to the order. And not only that, you'd go to deliver her food and she'd yell at the delivery driver and try to get out of paying for the extra food. And she'd refuse to tip. And this wasn't some poor person trying to get one over or anything. She lived in a nice house in the rich neighborhood in town. She was just an entitled hole. Story 37. I worked for a farm and fleet store. We had a rival store that was called a Fleet Farm store. It was stupid. People were always confusing them. Anyway, I worked hardware and had just finished all the price changes for the day. I get a call from a guy wanting to know about our chainsaws that are on sale. Ours weren't. I go to the front and grab one of our flyers just to be sure I didn't miss anything. Sure enough, not us. As I am still on the phone with this guy telling him this, he is very insistent that I am wrong. I walked over to a chainsaw display, and even though he can't see it, I informed him that, sir, I am standing directly in front of the chainsaws. They not on sale. You have us confused with Fleet Farm. At which he proceeds to scream that he wants to speak to a guy because women have no idea what they are doing when it comes to this stuff. Not the first time I've heard that, won't be the last. Another time at the same job, I got yelled at in Punjabi because I didn't know if the store even sold something. I think it was housewares or clothing related. It would have been on the other side of the store and the only departments that couldn't help people in. Story 38. The AC being broken at our restaurant. There was a party of 12 coming in, and they were all okay at the beginning. They were waiting on one more person, and when she showed up, she was an older woman, probably 50s. I asked her what she wanted to drink. When I came back with her drink, she asked me, why it was so hot, and I told her our AC was broken, and the Karen literally says this, "Well, why didn't you tell me before we came in the nastiest Karen tone. And I was already annoyed because it was hot as Satan's booty hole, and she gave me attitude for no reason. And I snapped back and said, "Well, if you didn't get here late, you would have known. And even if you did get here on time, I'm not the hostess, so I wouldn't be able to tell you when you got here regardless." And I walked away and stopped taking care of them. My manager took over, and she understood exactly why I didn't want them, because they were S the whole time they were there. And then she stops me and asks for a Togo container, and I told her she wasn't my table and walked off. I haven't seen that hoe since, and I hope she's 6 feet under somewhere right now. Story 39. Worked at a flower shop. Customer came back 2 days later saying they were upset their roses died so quickly and wanted a refund. I apologized, and we had a set of questions to ask before issuing a refund. I asked if they had cut and placed the roses in water, and the woman responded, "The roses had to be in water." Story 40. I was in phone tech support for desktop company. The head of a school was trying to return 200 dead units after they got fried in a lightning storm. I told him, "This isn't a manufacturing defect. I think this falls under act of God." And he got really offended and said, "Well, what if I don't believe?" And I'm like, "Bro, it's a legal term." Felt bad for him, but no way we're eating the cost on 200 units when he should have just paid the extra grand to put in better surge protectors. We also had this customer in India that started calling in 20 plus times per day to complain about our lack of Linux support. We eventually blocked his number in the phone system, but he started switching to new Skype numbers to keep calling us. So we eventually just had a whiteboard in the office to keep track of Nikhil numbers, lots of great tech support stories. People who work in retail, what was the worst customer experience you've ever had? Story 1. I have a good one. I used to work in a retail store for a major wireless company. This guy walks in and hands me his phone saying he is having problems with his email. We sat down at a table, him across from me, and I began trying to figure out the problem. I swiped down from the top to the bottom to get to the notification window and access settings. I saw an email notification and went to click on it, but accidentally hit something else, which displayed a Facebook message, chat, that had a photo that appeared to be man in an explicit context. Since he was seated across from me, the guy didn't know what I was looking at and just assumed that I was working in his email. I scrolled up through the chat and was absolutely shocked at what I saw. There were several pictures of the same nature as the first throughout this chat between him and some other guy, exchanging these disgusting images and commenting on how they liked them. I had never received any training about what to do in that moment, but I knew what I wanted to do. The photos were definitely cup. I thought about just beating the crap out of him right there. But the store was busy and there were families with kids there. Then I thought about walking his phone to the back and locking it in the safe, and then calling the police why he was there. Ultimately, I chose to collect as much information about this guy as I could and contact the police after he left. I had his phone number and therefore all of the info on his account. I took a photo of him without him knowing. Luckily, I remembered to turn on silent so that the shutter sound wasn't audible, and I fixed his email issue and sent him along his way. He was arrested and pleaded guilty to several charges, including possession, manufacture, and distribution. Story 2. This wasn't the worst I've ever been treated or anything, but it was definitely the weirdest and my go-to story about retail life. I was a supervisor for a substance store chain while I was in college. We developed film and printed off pictures for people that they sent to the store through our online service. This was in 2011, so smartphones were just gearing up. And a lot of the photos we got from the online system were taken from flip phone cameras and looked like crap, all pixelated, etc. We also had to go through all the photos to make sure they were the best quality we could make them before we printed them and sold them. So I got this order one day, and the photos were clearly from a funeral. There were pictures of the dead woman in her casket alone, and in her casket with other people, like posing next to her. Not being silly or anything, just standing there. It was really weird. I didn't know people did that. Anyways, they were clearly taken with a flip phone camera, so they looked like crap. I printed them, and when the customer came to get them, I told her to look at them first, before she paid for them, because they were pixelated and she might not want them. The customer was the daughter of the deceased woman, and she brought her sister with her. Anyways, the daughter looked at the pictures and got upset that they looked so bad. She asked why I couldn't fix them, and I told her that it was her phone, not our software. She didn't really get all that pissed, but she said she wouldn't buy them. I told her I understood, and that was fine. She and her sister left, and I set the pictures aside to go in a Cintas container later, since I was on register and couldn't get to the stockroom that soon. Cintas containers were locked from anyone in the store, and their contents are picked up and shredded. We use them for prescriptions and photos, anything that had any personal identification on it. The daughter and the sister came back about an hour later and asked to see the photos again. Well, the daughter did. The sister was just teary-eyed the whole time. I pulled out the photos, and the daughter asked me how we'd get rid of them since they were of her dead mother, and she didn't want other people to see them. I told her about the Cintas container, but she wanted to see it for herself and make sure I couldn't get into it. I told her I couldn't show her because it was in a confidential part of the store. She got pissed and then said because I wouldn't respect the memory of her mother by destroying the pictures and instead saving them, she'd buy them. I told her I'd go back right now and put them in, but she insisted I was trying to save them. Seriously, what benefit would I get from that? She bought them and left. About an hour later, they're back. Each time they were in, the sister started crying a little more. The daughter wanted a refund. I told her I'd give her a refund and she could just take the pictures and they'd just be free. She told me that she didn't think that was right, so she had a plan. She wanted me to destroy the pictures right in front of her so that she knew they were destroyed and no one could see them. I just kind of looked at her for a minute and then I said, she should just take them for free. It was fine. I'm so sorry for your loss, etc. She started getting a little loud and other customers started looking down the aisles, noticing. She demanded that I cut up these pictures right in front of her. So I stood in front of this woman and cut up the pictures while she watched me. Her sister started sobbing, and at this point, other customers came up asking what was wrong. The daughter actually stopped me to tell me that her mother's face was still visible in some shreds, so I had to cut them more. When all was said and done, she and her sister left, and the customers that saw what had happened were stunned. I felt like the devil. I did end up throwing those scissored shreds in the Cinta Story 3, worked in a vitamin store, and the lady came in like a bat out of hell and stomped to the counter. She cuts the entire line to make a return. It's like she completely ignored the other people. She was angry that one of our salespeople sold her a product and she later saw in Dr. Oz that it really didn't help much. I told her to please wait in line and we will get this sorted for you. She was insistent that she be helped now. She said her doctor said it wouldn't help her, and so I asked if her doctor was Dr. Oz. She got so pissed and started to act like a child. The guy behind her was my hero that day. He just calmly said, "Calm the duck down, lady, and wait your turn." It's customers like that guy that make my day as a retail employee. Not all heroes wear capes. Some wear tank tops too big for them that expose their nipples. Story 4. I got stories for days, but the worst in my experience was when I worked at GameStop. Anybody who works at GameStop will tell you that there are regular customers who come in weekly and sometimes even daily. Some of the people are socially awkward, and they like to come talk to people that have the same hobby. No problem. I get it, and it's healthy for them to be interacting out in the public. We had one regular that I believe to either be homeless or came from a rough family. We'll call him Nick. Nick was about 20, had some sort of advanced autism. However, he was always nice and well-behaved in our store. He rode a bike, always was wearing army camo from the surplus store, and always had his backpack with his Nintendo DS. I'm not a Nintendo fan, but my supervisor was, and he was the one often engaging in conversation with this guy. My terrible experience began after I had been there for about 3 years and was working a shift just after Black Friday. Right when I arrived, Nick was at the counter with my supervisor, trying to return a game as new that we had not sold him. He had no receipt, no case for the DS game, and claims to have bought it with cash. My supervisor was busy with him and the line was wrapped around the store, so I just worked through the line as fast as I could. After 40 minutes, Nick finally left and was visibly upset that my supervisor would not return the game for him. I was working a 10-hour shift and my supervisor left, since he had been there since 4 a.m. Around 8:30, I see Nick is in the huge line and was curious to see him back. It was just me and another holiday employee there, so we were just trying to keep the line from going out the door. I finish a customer, and the next person in line is Nick. He wants to return his game. I tell him my supervisor already told him, no, I am not going to return it. He gets angry and starts to yell at me, calling me names. I try to calm him down, but he is livid. He tells me he is not leaving without getting something for the game. I do the most GameStop thing possible and tell I'll take it in trade, but he'd only get about 10% of its value. I had the game in my hand, and he snags it out of my hand. He then puts it in his backpack, smiles at me, and just falls straight back. He falls right into the gift card rack, the kind that has 3 sides and has about 1,000 different types of time and gift cards. That falls over and almost hits a customer, but instead hits the wall and takes out half of the used Xbox 360 section, spilling hundreds of cases onto the ground. Immediately, the store is quiet, and then some people rush in to help Nick. He claims to be overheated, it was the middle of winter, and asks for a soda. I just continued to help customers, and eventually someone offered to take him home, threw his bike in their car, and he was gone. Every customer after that situation that witnessed the exchange either made a joke about it to me or made comments that I could have been nicer to the guy. I ended spending 3 hours putting everything back in order that night. The next day, my supervisor called me into the back and we watched the security footage laughing. You can see his smile to me before falling back clear as day. Nick never came back to the store for the remainder that I worked there. I did see him once riding his bike in the city and it made me laugh. I worked retail from high school all the way through college. I've had people yell and scream at me, but I'll never forget Nick as he was my worst customer experience besides being robbed. Story 5. So, my absolute favorite customer of all time. I worked in a store which serves ice cream. Now, a lady came up to me and asked to purchase a family-sized tub. This cost like $4.95 or something and had 9 scoops of ice cream in it. She paid and I went over to the ice cream counter. The lady hummed and hawed, looking at the selection of about 9 or so flavors. Then she said, "I don't like any of these. Is it possible that you have anything fruity?" I said that I wasn't sure, but I shall have a look in the back freezer and see if there was something that perhaps was not put out. So off I went, leaving my workmate continuing serving customers with shopping. It wasn't too busy, so he was fine by himself. I returned with 2 flavors, strawberry and raspberry ruffle. I showed the lady and she said that she'd have a little bit of both if that's okay. I said certainly, and I gave her a small warning. I told her that since this was just out of the freezer, it'll be rock hard and extremely difficult to get through, and that she would have to wait a little bit whilst I did it. She said that it was fine, and thus began the most strenuous exercise my right arm had ever done. And being a 16-year-old boy, that is saying a lot. Anyway, eventually a queue started to form and my workmate asked for a hand. I excused myself from the lady, stating that there was a queue and it would give the ice cream time to soften. She said that was fine, and off I went. About 5 minutes of putting customers through, this lady storms over with a face as red as a beetroot. "I have been ducking waiting 20 minutes for my ice cream. Why the duck should I have to wait so long?" Myself and the customer I was serving was taken aback by this. I responded that I apologize, however, as I said previously, I had gotten the ice cream from the freezer, and it is rock solid, and she cut me off. Then she uttered a phrase that, simply put, almost got me fired, slapped by her, or whatever other bad thing could possibly happen at that moment. She asked me, "Well, why the duck is it in the freezer then?" I looked at her, then at the other customer, whom was a regular and I was friendly with. The customer I was serving screwed up her face, trying not to laugh. I couldn't hold it. I laughed, and I laughed. I couldn't help myself. She stormed out, and that was the last I saw of her. I still giggle when I think about it. Story 6. A crazy lady visits the animal shelter and attempts to adopt a dog that is a terrible fit for her, while refusing to follow rules and being extremely aggressive. Details. I work at an animal shelter, and a few months ago, we had a sweet little elderly lady come in wanting to adopt a dog. I told her to go back and take a look, and if there was one she was interested in, to come back up and talk to us so we could go over the rules and get her a leash. A few minutes later, she comes up wanting to take out a small, medium-sized dog with lots of energy. I worried a bit about this, since it didn't seem like a great fit for a lady that could barely walk herself, let alone a young, strong dog. But I handed her the rules to read over and told her I'd ask her a couple questions afterwards to make sure she got it. She tries to tell me she knows all the rules and doesn't need to do that. I asked her about one of our main rules to see if she really knew them. And suddenly she starts yelling at me about how she has never been treated this way and how dare I not just give her the leash. The animal shelter in such and such a place, not ours, never made her do anything like that. You've got to understand, the rules are mostly common sense, i.e., leave your keys at the front desk so you can't walk off with the dog. Don't take out dogs you can't handle. Don't leave the property. Don't let the dog near other animals. Clean up any messes, etc. I patiently told her that the rules are for her safety and for the dogs, and if she wasn't going to follow them, I wasn't going to let her get the dog out, because it could be dangerous. And also, we are not those other places and have our own rules. At this, she starts screaming and stomping and throwing a massive tantrum. She walked out in a rage, claiming she was never going to come back to this horrendously rude place, only to come back in 20 seconds later. She did that 3 times. My extremely patient coworker steps in and backs me up, gently telling her all she needs to do is read the 1-page list of rules and give us her keys. Eventually, after like 5 minutes, she got her calmed down enough to start reading the rules. After she read them, every question was like pulling teeth. We asked her a couple questions about the rules, which she angrily answered incorrectly. We corrected her, letting it slide that she clearly had not read the rules thoroughly enough, and reminded her that we'd need her keys. She argues even more about that, even though she had been told about it multiple times before, and finally literally throws the large set of keys at my coworker's face and snatches the leash from her hand, storming off to get the dog. I would have told her no, so my coworker is a lot nicer than me. She ended up adopting a little chihuahua that was a much better fit, and she calmed down a lot for that process, but was still a pain to deal with. Story 7, many. But let's share my top 3 in no particular order from a bagger in a grocery store. We had an old lady that never ducking showered, and her car was packed to the brim with crap. She smelled horrid. It was considered a curse, or meme, if any baggers at the time had to bag for her being close to them, and a double curse if she needed help to her car. Which is always, and the smell was worse. She would always hang out in the cafe too, in the center of everyone. It got so bad the store put a restaining order on her. 2. This lady was caught stealing by a manger of all people, too. So the manager asked her nicely to leave, and she did. So you would think it would be the end of the story. But nope. Later, her bag was found, and they took it to Lost and Found. Then later, the back office for reasons I didn't know at the time. But she later came back and demanded her back after left in the elevator. But we couldn't. Why? Meth was in the bag, along with other illegal substances. Oh boy. But she still demanded to have it back going, as far to yell in front of the whole store. They took her to the office to calmly discuss it. Next thing I see is police officers carrying her out and her yelling. Talk about a bad thief. 3. This still haunts me. It's what caused me to be more attentive to the time and got me to quickly close the doors when it closes. You see, if closing, we can't leave until we clean the store. But we can't clean the store till everyone leaves. This Karen and her son decide to take 40 minutes past close closing to buy not 1 cart. Not even 2, not even 3, but 4. 4 carts overflowing with crap. It took 2 ducking long to scan, bag, and take her to her car. Even the cashier had to take her crap to the car. Then, when we get there, she's like, wait, I have to go back down and get flowers. Karen, no, we are closed. But no, I had to be a good customer and say it politely. Ma'am, I'm sorry, but we are closed and the regristers are crapped down. She ignores me and goes back downstairs and comes back up once we finished. The only good thing is that was me and the cashier's first and only $10 tip. It took another hour to clean and I ended up leaving 40 minutes past when I was supposed to leave, late at 12:40 a.m. Moral of the story, if you come in minutes before closing to do your shopping, you deserve to be punched in the face. Story 8. I was serving register where the line was out the door. Busy in a run-of-the-mill chain cafe, there were about 7 customers in line. She-Devil walks in. A tall, blonde, middle-aged, ugly-looking thing with way too much eyeshadow on. Anyways, she walks right up to the front of the line and pushes past everyone, dumps about $2 on the counter, and demands a soy chai latte. She didn't even wait for my response as she walked onto the area where she'd received the coffee. I got someone else to take over the register and walked up to the barista, who happened to be my boss and the owner of the franchise. I say, excuse me, while I'm trying to get her attention. She turns around and I politely inform her that she underpaid around $1.50. Not much, but in a cafe where our transactions are all around that much, considerable. She rummages in her purse for about 5 seconds and then threw the money on the counter. It bounced and knocked over our display. I looked at her expectantly, seeing the childish behavior on display. My boss finished making her coffee and I handed it out to her. She took a sip, looked at me and said, "How do you expect me to drink this? It's cold." In line with her change, she then threw this drink down on the counter. The drink spilled and poured all down my shirt. She saw this, clicked at me and said, "Make another one." I'm getting really frustrated at this point. I'm seething, barely keeping my rage in check. I looked at the boss and asked him if he was going to do anything. He glared at me and said, "Don't be so rude." I took a deep breath and tried my absolute hardest not to shout at this point. I remade her drink extra hot, in line with what she wanted. It was at this point that she then refutes the charge of the drink. I'd told her all along that the drink cost $3.50. She started complaining about how in Italy, she had an Australian accent, where we were, she wouldn't have to pay at all. Drinks like that would be free for her. My boss glares at me and tells me to give her proper change. I had no idea what that was, and the she-devil is still complaining quite loudly. I go over to the till and get her full $3.50 back out, slamming the till as loud as I ever had. I slammed that money on the counter and then proceeded to stare that woman out of the shop. The boss turned to me to say something, saw me staring at him with as much rage as I could muster, and then swapped with someone instead so he could retreat to the other end of the cafe. I couldn't keep going after that, having him ridicule me in front of a Karen of a customer when I was clearly in the right and hadn't done anything wrong. I went out the back and bawled out of frustration, then told him I was leaving for the day. He apologized the next day. Story 9. A customer was harassing me, and my manager tried giving me a disciplinary for refusing to serve her. Solicitor got involved and manager shat herself. Long version. I had a woman try to convince me to take her into the storeroom so her friend could give me a BJ, and her friend grabbed my junk while I was stood there, trying to take in what was happening. I politely refused and told her friend never to touch me again. I then told my manager. The friend came in several days later and grabbed my ass while I was sorting out the bottom shelves. I asked my manager to refuse service to the woman, and she laughed in my face and told me to man up. When I refused to serve the girl at the checkouts, my manager tried to give me a disciplinary. I wasn't accepting that and told her that if she wants to go down that road, I'll quite happily go down the legal route with her and the company for allowing staff to be harassed by customers and then punishing them for not allowing it to happen. She tried calling my bluff and continued on with the disciplinary. I told her to stop and got my partner's solicitor on the phone and explained the situation. He backed me up and spoke to my manager directly on the phone, and while the conversation was unfolding, I don't know what was said. I watched the color drain from her face, and she very quickly put the forms in the shredder, and the customer and her friend were refused entry to the store. Story 10. I've worked in retail now for almost 2.5 years as a cashier now, customer service as I was recently moved up. Big whoop. Anyway, this certain event that I will surely never forget happened 2 years ago, just 2 days before Thanksgiving. I was working the self-checkout area when this white 40-some-year-old woman and her mixed, half-black, presumably son, was with her about 8 or 9 years old. The woman is super friendly with me, just rambling on about crap while I was just nodding and smiling. For some reason, she kept mentioning to me that she had like 5 mixed children. Okay, I honestly don't care about your lifestyle. That's cool, you do you, lady. It was information I really didn't need to or wanted to know. She seemed as if she was insecure about it. While scanning, she realized there is a hole ripped in the side of her frozen turkey. No problem. I kindly ask another employee to grab her a new one. She's extremely kind and gracious when the new one is brought to her. Then, the woman receives a phone call. While on the phone, she seems flustered and stressed. She's trying to pay, but the machine won't allow her to continue, as she has told her son to start removing their groceries from the scale. I kindly walk over, woman is still on the phone, and explain politely to the sweet kid that we have to put the groceries back on the scale so his mother could continue checking out. He smiles and nods, but I tell him it's really no problem, and I'll lift all the bags for him. The woman whips the phone away from her ear and barks at me. What are you doing? Oh, I was just telling him that in order for you to finish, you have to keep the groceries on the bagging area. You think my son is stealing or something? No, of course not. That's an insane accusation. I'm just following the policy. The woman goes back to her phone call, and I walk away. Once she finishes paying, she asks me to speak to a manager. As it was busy in the store, one of my managers was a few feet away, actually. I point at her and say, yeah, she's right there. The lady, who is now furious, says, never mind, and storms out with her son. About 10 minutes later, I get called into the manager's office. The lady called management from the parking lot and told them I'm a, quote, Karen, who accused her son of stealing. What? I have no idea what I did wrong. I explained the entire situation, and luckily my manager said she sounded crazy on the phone and believed my side completely. The whole situation ruined my day and is definitely the worst retail experience I've had to deal with. Story 11. Worked retail in college, had a guy threaten to hit me because we were out of stock on the TV he wanted. Scenario for the curious. Customer. I want this TV, me. Apologies, looks like we're out of stock. I can have it delivered to your house for free, or I can order it to the store for you to pick up. Customer. That's bullcrap. I've been saving for this TV for a long time and I want it today. Me. There's a store south of here that has one, but it's about an hour drive from here. Ensuing conversation about how I can't go get it for him that day, where he completely flips out and my manager has to call him down, eventually does. Customer on the way out of the store leans in as I walk by. Look at me again and I'll lost you. Manager was a cool dude. Told the customer he would call the police if he said anything like that again. And luckily I never ran into the customer after that. People pooping in dressing room. Homeless guy who stuffed a bunch of clothes under his jacket, then charged me when I approached him. People pooping on the racetrack, path that goes around the store. Guy who switched price tags on a $3,000 TV and a $201, then threw a fit when we wouldn't sell the more expensive one to him for cheap. Yelled for a while, eventually left. Called the store and asked for the manager's name and address, was denied. Then called to say he had the police and was ready to enter with them to force us to sell the TV because of our bait and switch, was told to come on in. Then called and posed as the CEO's assistant and that he needed our manager's name and address. The next morning I came to work and guys from legal were there. He said my manager and I had verbally and physically harassed him. Security tapes proved otherwise, but I had to give a statement. Meth addict stole her parents' credit card and bought over $20K worth of computers while her parents were out of town, then pawned them. Parents came home and had to rebuy all the computers from the pawn shop because they didn't want their daughter to be charged with a crime. Then had to return them all to the store. Was a pain in the ass, but I got a killer deal on an open item MacBook thanks to her. People pooping in shoes. Story 12. Most uncomfortable. Managed one of a chain of pet stores. One day, this older southern couple comes in and starts looking at the fancy goldfish tank, trying to pick out which one they want. It's a tank full of bubble eye and a fantail goldfish, various colors, gold, black, orange. I'm standing off to the side, merchandising a shelf, when one of my employees, who is black, approached them from behind with a net and bucket ready to help them. They didn't notice her approaching, and we all hear the man say to his wife, "Which one do you want? The gold one or black one?" My jaw hit the floor, and I wasn't sure what was going to happen next. So my employee loudly set, almost slammed, the bucket and net on the counter next to her and says loudly, "I guess you don't want a black catching it for you then," and storms off. The wife slapped his arm and said, "I can't believe you said that." His face turned 3 shades whiter, and his mouth went wide. You could see he was rightfully mortified. He looks over at me like I'm going to help him. Look, if she forgives you, we'll help you. But if not, I'm going to ask you to leave. It's completely up to her. The man sheepishly walks up to the front counter where my employee went and started talking to her. You could see he was pleading his case, and I felt that he was genuinely sorry. A few minutes go by, and the next thing I see the two of them, the husband and my employee, they're walking back to the fish section next to each other laughing. She helped them pick out their fish, bagged them, and rang them up. I never asked what he said. I simply said, I told them I was going to ask them to leave if you didn't want them here. Are you good? Do you need a break? She said, nope, I'm good. And we never talked about it again. She was a real sweetheart. I don't know exactly what happened to turn a bad situation into a good one, but I suspect it was just her personality. It was potentially one of the most challenging situations of my old career. Well, that and the time, one of my cashiers kicked another employee in the chest, but that's for a different time. Story 13. Not retail necessarily, but it's customer service, so I think it applies. I'm in college and used to wait tables part-time before it became too much for me. I once had a customer who initially seemed really nice. She came in alone and knew her order right away. Apparently, her food was too hot and she became insanely angry when I apologized and told her everything comes out fresh from the oven grill. She grabbed my hand and stuck it into her very hot food and yelled, "Don't you think it's too hot, dear?" in the angriest, most condescending voice. It was really hot, to be fair, but I had literally just brought it out to her. I was shocked and just started stuttering out an apology. My coworker saw it happen and immediately asked her to leave. I ended up crying in the back for a while. I don't miss that job. I'm definitely too shy and introverted to stand up for myself when needed. Just treat employees like humans, people. Story 14. My first job was at a locally owned video store, and 10 years ago when I worked there, it would get really busy. Yano, before Netflix was really a widespread thing yet. One busy day, lineup of people all the way to the door. Customer gets to the counter saying the DVDs he bought were unplayable, and he wanted to return them and get a refund. I apologized, no problem. Asked to have a look, knowing full well that we don't sell DVDs with scratches on them. The movies were basically destroyed, like he went to town on them with a box cutter and then got his cats to play with them. IDK. I tell him I'm sorry, but we can't resell these in the state they're in. Buddy loses it, starts raising his voice about, what do I know? I wasn't the one who sold them to him. I was, he just didn't remember, pointing his finger in my face. I keep stuttering out apologies for five minutes until he finally leaves. Next customer comes to the counter, after seeing the whole scene, casually goes, "Miss, could you tell me where I might find the movie The Git?" Even if it was a coincidence. Bless you, friendly customer. You restored my faith in people for a brief moment. Story 15. Way too many. But the one that made me the maddest. Waiting on an elderly lady, she fainted and hit her head on the counter on the way down. Everyone went over to help her, talked to her as she regained consciousness, pressed a paper towel to her bleeding head, kept her calm as we waited for the ambulance. Another lady stepped over her prone body to the counter and demanded to be rung up as she was in a hurry. Story 16. I work in a grocery store bakery as a cake decorator, and people really freak out over their cakes. I took this one lady's cake order, and she wanted a Transformers cake for her son's birthday, but she didn't like the two options we had. She could either get the cake decorated with the toy on top, or the cake with an edible photo of the Transformers on the cake. She kept showing me photos of other cakes on her phone, and I had to keep telling her no because we are working under strict copyright laws and can only decorate what we have been given permission to decorate. So she orders the kit, or so I thought. The husband picks up the cake, says it looks fine, and takes it. She calls the store, saying she wanted the image. The cake was ugly, and her 6-year-old son was crying. She then rounds off the whole experience with, "I just want to come in there and smash the cake in that girl's face." I had never in my 10 years of retail been threatened before, and for that threat, she did not get any sort of refund and got chewed out for making threats. Story 17, decades ago. Manager at Toys R Us, probably 25 years old. Christmas Eve, so we are closing at 6 p.m. or thereabout, after running 100-hour weeks since Halloween. Along about 5:30 p.m., I get a call to come to the front customer service desk. There I am, greeted by 3 adults, all obviously intoxicated, and sharing 8 or 9 teeth between them. Granny proceeds to spit-splain, explaining her issue with much sputtering and spitting, that they are upset that the season's 3 hottest toys are not available and wants me to find them for her. "And we ain't leaving till you do." 20 minutes later, after raised voices, various threats, and several displays knocked over and merchandise broken, as these 3 tried to make their point, I was asked by the police office on duty if I wanted to press charges and have them arrested. He was really eager. I opted to give them a Christmas present of my own, as I told them, "You have 2 options. One is to leave the store now, and yes, that means you have to explain to the kids why waiting until the last minute does not result in getting the hottest toys. Or 2, you can end up in jail and explain that to the kids. After a few seconds of bliss silence and shocked recognition, the 3 elected to leave on their own, of course, cursing me all the way out of the store. Story 18. I just started working at a store in the mall for little girls. We sold flower headbands, little girl jewelry, and could pierce ears. Needless to say, we had a lot of girls come in, especially during the holidays. Well, this lady came in with her 2 girls. Before the lady began looking at anything, the 6-year-old started saying she needed the restroom. She told her repeatedly that she needed to go. We don't have a bathroom in the store. I keep watching the little girl try to get the lady's attention. Before I knew it, there was piss all over the floor, and lady is yelling at the poor child for it. Guess who lady blamed for her child not being able to hold it any longer? If you guessed fed up, don't get paid enough for their crap employee, then you guessed correctly. Yep, she had the ducking nerve when literally 2 stores over, this is an indoor mall, and it's more than walking distance, there's a public restroom. I felt so bad for the little girl. She cried and cried. I let her stand by me while they checked out so not too many people would see her. Do you think she offered to clean it up or do anything about it at all? I quit a week later. It's funny because I got a notice that the company is filing for bankruptcy a week ago. That company was a total crap show. Obviously, the story I told isn't related to the other issues I specifically had with the company. Story 19. The first. I worked for a major pet store, and the groomers create a bill for their services, give it to the customer who gives it to me, the cashier up front. All I do is scan the barcode and take their payment. She wants to know, well, what did this service include? I tell her I have no idea because the bill isn't itemized, but we can walk back to the groomers and ask. She just went off. I can't remember most of what she said because this was 8-odd years ago, but I do remember her parting comment as she walked out the front door. You got them surveys on the receipt, Deftalica? Because I just love doing surveys. The second, 5 or so years ago. New job, still retail, selling firearms. It's my very last customer on Black Friday, which has actually been a good day. I'm working the closing shift. We get through his transaction with no issues, ring up his cart full of stuff. He asks for a copy of the background check form used to purchase the firearm. I reply, I'm not sure if I can do that, but let me check with my manager. My manager tells me in no uncertain terms that the paperwork is not to leave our location. I relay that to the customer. He goes off saying he'll never shop here again. He's going to return everything he'd bought from our company in the last 10 years, etc. I'm like, dude, I'm sorry. This is what my manager told me. It's a decision above my pay grade. During this time, my manager calls our GM while the customer is ripping my head off, who tells him, yeah, it's his information. Make him a copy, which diffused the situation. Still, it was a downer because for a Black Friday, the day had gone really well until that very last customer. Story 20. I worked at a sad mini-mart of a grocery chain. It was a horrible little store, and we were open on Thanksgiving. I worked and was going through this long line of customers. One a-hole came in with a full cart, but that's not what made her an a-hole. It was the fact that she wanted plastic bags inside of paper bags, inside of another plastic bag. It was a stupid thing I'd seen some people do, and I never understood it. But the problem was that I had no paper bags. I was very courteous. I'm sorry, but I have run out of paper bags. I can still give you double plastic if that works. She gave me this look like she wanted to punch me in the face, and I could tell she was choking on her own ducking rage that I had the balls to deny her paper bags or something. She looked around, saw some paper bags at the register beside me. She nearly toppled over the skinny high school girl bagging at the next register, grabbed them, and slammed them on my station. Start bagging, she screamed at me. I didn't say a word, I just bagged. She turned her back to me, talking to the customer behind her the entire time about what a worthless, incompetent piece of crap I was, and all this hate for retail workers. I put up with all of it, but I did put her 8 2-liters of soda all on top of her donuts, eggs, bread, and fragile stuff, all in one bag. Actually, it was 3 bags, plastic, inside of paper, inside of plastic. I was a casual weightlifter, and this ducking bag made me grunt with effort putting it into her cart. I thanked her for shopping and said, Happy Thanksgiving. I like to think I ruined her day. She never did come to my line again, though. Story 21. Women came in and we could all tell she was in a bad mood. Parking like an a-hole, slammed doors on the way in, no smile on face, etc. Orders a large, hot, black coffee. Easy enough, make it, give it to her, and she takes 1 sip and asks if I put cream and sugar in her coffee. Well, no, I thought you said black. She explains that she did say black, but wanted cream and sugar and was talking about a black roast of coffee. I calmly explained to her that's she's mistake and she cusses me out and says, I need to be trained better before I work a shift. And it's not my fault I got it wrong. And the owner should be embarrassed for letting me work. I am the owner. Story 22. Customer wanted to buy a pair of expensive boots with cash. Told him we didn't have the boots, but could ship overnight at no charge from another store directly to him. Okay, but I want to pay with cash. That's what you're not hearing. I tell him, don't worry, sir, we can still pay with your cash. I explain to him that he buys a gift card from me for the exact amount tax, and then pay for that pair over the phone with the other store. Simple. Nope. He said he would never shop here again and that I should not try to pull the curtains over him and he wouldn't be tricked into anything like that. I just stood there in disbelief as he ranted at me about how I'm trying to scam him. Story 23. I was a cashier at a members-only big box electronics store when that was still a thing. The membership was free. Before entering the store, a membership card had to be presented or signed up for. I could not ring up any purchase without the membership card. A man, easily in his 60s, comes to my register to check out. I ask him for his membership card. He immediately gets angry and defensive, saying he doesn't have one. I tell him they are free and store policy as he needs one to enter the store and/or buy anything. He yells that he doesn't want one, he just wants to buy something. I explain again that they are free and store policy. He gets red in the face, yelling profanities, saying he doesn't have or want one. Here's where I ducked up. I asked how he got in the store without a membership card. Wrong thing to ask this a whole. His retaliation for this slight against him was to throw his keyring, with 10 plus keys on it, at my face. I was too shocked and hurt to react. He snatched his keys up and stomped out of the store. Duck that guy forever. Story 24. I used to work the service desk at a grocery store, but mainly dealt with the backroom stuff. I'm also something of a giant, 6'5", 275 pounds, broad shoulders, I lift weights. The girls at the actual service desk were all super short, and it became pretty common for me to be called to the desk if they thought customers were going to get physical or especially abusive. Basically, I'd stand there, chat with one of them, just being big in everyone's presence. I'm actually a pretty big teddy bear. I'd never gotten physical with any customer, but the closest I've come was when the lottery machine wasn't working. This older guy who had been screaming at the girls at the front as if they could change anything that was happening. He tried to shove his way into the desk, yelling at these girls the entire time. I didn't touch him, but I put my hand down between him and the desk's entrance, a bit hard, and stopped him from going in. I've never gotten into fights, never hurt anyone intentionally. I don't know what I'd do if he hadn't left. Story 25. So this literally just happened within the last hour. For context, I am the manager in a small family-owned pharmacy that also operates as a small grocery store. So last week we had a sale on Prego sauce and ran out of it, so we gave this one older guy a rain check so he could come back when we got more in for the sale price. Well, the company we ordered the grocery product from accidentally sent us a bunch of huge jars of Prego sauce instead of the regular 20 Aussie ones that were ordered. I told this old guy that there was a mix-up with the sauce and how we only had large jars of it and that I would give him a couple of them at about half price. And this is when he starts losing his absolute crap, screaming and yelling about how I'm a ducking retarded kid and how anyone born after 85 is stuck up and how we need to respect everyone but we don't. Ironic, right? And all this other crap. All the while, I'm trying to explain that there was a mix-up on the supplier's end, and there's nothing we can do about it currently. When I said that, he thrust his finger in my face, nearly crushing my glasses against my nose, saying that I guaranteed that the ducking sauce would ducking be here, and calling me trash. Now, I never guaranteed that it would be, and due to the fact that stuff once in a while doesn't come in or the wrong thing does. He ultimately left after screaming that we should stick to supplying the druggies. Needless to say, it made me a bit salty on an otherwise decent Friday. Story 26. Worked in a department store, kind of mid-range with everything but food. I was a seasonal temp for the holiday season. I'd done retail off and on, but this customer has left an impression on me. It was the Saturday after Black Friday. We were running deals still, and my line as cashier was steadily rising. Crazy customer comes to my register with not one but two overflowing carts full of merchandise. She had the attitude of a witch. As I was scanning everything, she'd inevitably scream, "Hold up, I don't want that," and I had to clear it. This happened every 3 or 4 items. She then had the nerve to say I had an attitude with her because I'm disrespectful to other. I have no idea what set her off. I was doing the best I could. My manager was watching me. I was on week 4, so still a newbie. So I was watching how I responded. Honestly, I was taken aback by that comment, but continued to get through her and all her stuff. Then her friend jumped line and started handing stuff to me. Scan it and I'll see if I want it. It took both those ladies almost an hour to check out, and then they kept getting declined with their credit card. Finally, the lady pulls out cash and pays. I'm left with a cart full of toys, clothes, shoes, and cookware that needed put away. That was my toughest shift and my worst customer. I actually quit the week before Christmas. My health took a nosedive after dealing with crazy holiday customers directly. I previously worked retail, but rarely on register. I was the cleanup crew at my previous job. Story 27, too numerous to mention, but the one that made me physically sick comes to mind. working in a bank as a commercial teller. I was new to that location, and no one warned me about Mr. Pissy Pants. This fellow made the carpet curl, could smell him from 50 paces. So one day, I had no one in my line when he happened to come in. All the other tellers magically needed to fax something, pee, or make a coffee. They disappear and he comes to my station. The minute he stood in front of me, I gagged and stepped back, tried to hold my lunch down and failed. Projectile barf all over the carpet and my chair. Then, I had to actually serve him, while tears flowed and me trying to recover. Odd part was he looked clean, but I gather hadn't showered in years. I transferred to a new branch. I had wondered why the backside of the counter area had ugly mismatched carpet tiles. Was obvious when maintenance was called immediately and had to change them at my station. Story 28. Didn't happen to me, but I watched the security recording of it, worked in it, and was on the phone with another employee for an unrelated printer issue when the incident went down. The storefronts were more or less retailers for generic large cell phone company. Some lady brought in her husband's phone, saying that he had recently passed away and that she just needed some help getting the photos off of his phone. Obviously not a huge deal, so the employee takes the phone and goes to get the account info from her to verify all that jazz. As he's doing this, he pulls the battery cover off, and what I can only describe as an amount of fresh blood pours out of the phone onto the counter and floor. It was at this point that I became aware of what was happening, as the employee I was assisting had seen this occur. Obviously, this put a bit of a damper on things, and the poor guy helping this lady said that we wouldn't be able to do anything given the current state of the phone. The lady was, and obviously I'm paraphrasing a bit, asking if he was sure there was nothing he could do, and seemed baffled by the appearance of all this blood. Nobody is buying this, and we were all pretty sure she just stabbed some poor schmuck in the parking lot. She ended up taking the phone and leaving while the employee frantically hand sanitized, and somebody else called the cops. I pulled the video and sent it to the manager for the cops, but I never heard what came of it. Story 29. I used to work at a pharmacy, and I have a few stories, but I'll tell just this one because it has a happy ending. One day, a lady came up to the counter and I started helping her. She had run out of a medication and came to get a refill. No big problem, I've done that before. I get her name and the medication, give her a number, go to one of the computers, and pull it up. She leaves to do some shopping, and I make a refill request. When I go to print out the information sheet, a warning pops up saying it can't bill the insurance. No big deal, I've dealt with that before. I try a couple things and find out that her refill wasn't available to be paid by insurance until the next day. We call her number, and she comes back. I start to explain what happened. It's been 5 to 10 minutes since she originally stopped at the counter, and she starts yelling. I work with her and help calm her down a bit, saying that we can fill it, she pays, then come back next day and we can refund bill the insurance then. She agrees, still very steamy and short with me, gets her medication and leaves. She came back the next day and I was working the counter again. She apologized many times to me. She had been out of that medication for a few days and it helps her remain calm, so it made sense why she was very aggravated the previous day. We then went through the refund billing process and got her on her way. Story 30. I used to work in a home improvement store during college, and apart from all the creepy men touching my hair and complimenting it, there were a lot of men who were super sexist. There was this one impatient customer who wanted me to page someone from the electrical department to help him find a specific part. I did so, but the lady working the department that shift, who was also the manager of the department, was swamped with customers, so she told me to ask him to wait. He did wait for a couple minutes before asking me to page her again. I did and got the same response, which I relayed to the customer. He went off to roam around the store for a couple of minutes before he came back another time to yell at me for apparently lying about paging someone, because if I did page someone, he would have been helped out by now. Then he started to go on a rant about how women can't do anything right. The electrical manager shows up at that moment to help him, and he starts yelling about how he doesn't want a woman to help him. The electrical manager looks shocked at first, but then she composes herself and says, "It's okay, I'm the manager of the department. I know my stuff." That sends the customer on another rant about how women should only work in the floral and customer service departments, and he was never coming back to our store if women were going to be put in charge of departments. Story 31. I worked customer service at Kroger, and I had a customer who was receiving money through Western Union. According to law, I was required to check her ID and write down her ID info. As I was doing this, she was looking over the counter to watch exactly what I was doing. When she saw me writing numbers, she yelled, took the paper from me, and ripped the piece where I wrote her info, and she refused to let me have her ID back and proceeded to scream at me. I called the store manager, took a deep breath, and took a few steps away from the counter as I ignored her. My manager ran up and immediately took the force of her rage. She was making a scene for the entire store to hear while swearing in his face. She randomly stopped to look over at the front office, overlooking the front of the store, where there was an employee watching, and the customer yelled, "What do you want?" Do you want to come fight or what? The argument proceeded into the parking lot as he tried to get her to leave. He returned with her 5 minutes later, asking me to process the transaction and give her the money. One of my biggest regrets of my college years is not telling him to screw off, and the same to her, and refusing to do so. The transaction was for a small amount of money too, under $50, I believe, just to make it even better. Story 32. Not me, but my husband works as a butcher, and I was waiting around for him to get done work. And this really generic boomer woman came up to him and asked which salmon was fresher, the organic or the wild caught. She then proceeds to tell him that she is making sushi and wants the freshest, so she can make it for her guests. My husband just goes into retail mode and tells her, "Sorry, ma'am, you can only use sushi-grade fish if you are to serve it raw. Since we aren't a fishmonger, we don't offer this. If you are going to cook it, it doesn't matter which one you use." She then gets all huffy and informs my husband that she used the organic salmon last time and everyone was fine. So she will take the organic salmon again. Now I stood there jaw open looking at her like she was the stupidest goddamn woman in the universe. Like, come on, you are going poison your guests if not giving them parasites. Let alone, she actually thinks organic salmon is safer. That's farmed. If anything, it would have more parasites in it. It's why we cook it before we eat it. This entitled Karen wouldn't listen to the professional who has to have his food safety and whenever else. When she left, I asked him how he put up with that nonsense. He said he did his duty by telling her it wasn't safe to eat raw after that. It's her life choices. Story 33. I worked in a call center environment 4 years ago for an online retailer of women's clothes, and I was just starting out. It was the holiday season, and calls were coming in crazy. I took this call from a woman whose order ended up being canceled due to inventory being out of stock. The next 10 minutes was pure hell due to this crazy person not knowing how pending charges work and how they drop within certain business days. But this woman refused to listen to me and demanded that I refund her the money back. I've had to explain to her of how it works and how this is the normal procedure when it comes to online purchases, but she was not having it and continued to berate, abuse, and scream, literally like a banshee, at me to refund her money right away. I felt like crap after that call throughout the day and couldn't believe how people would have this kind of reaction over canceled orders, through no fault of the call center agent. Looking back though, knowing I went through that kind of mistreatment, I should have just taken this lady's phone number and banned her from contacting us due to abuse. But I was not aware of how the system fully functions at the time, and how to do so since I was just starting out and our goal was to typically reduce calls given that it was the holidays and increase our sell-as. Story 34. I was a cashier at a grocery store. It's Sunday afternoon and we're absolutely slammed. Everyone is coming up with huge orders and the lines are really long. I'm ringing up this one lady working as fast and efficiently as I can when she goes, "Oh, I forgot something," and peace out. I was almost done scanning everything, and by the time I had everything already packed, she hadn't come back. Well, I'm sitting here like an a-hole with her incomplete order, and old guy who was next up absolutely loses his crap. I mean, yeah, I get his frustration, but I'm just a 16-year-old kid in the middle of it all, and he's getting really aggressive. To shut his ass up, I suspend the lady's order and get working on his. In wonderful timing, the lady comes back, and now she's pissed at me for pushing her order off to the side, so I'm in the middle of all this turmoil with everybody against me. The only respite I got was that things calmed down a bit just in time for me to see that lady and old guy screaming at each other in the parking lot. I wish they'd have thrown punches, though. I haven't seen this happen again in a really long time. But for Christ's sake, please, if you forgot something and no one is with you to complete the transaction, just finish up your order, pack your crap, and go the duck back in afterwards. Story 35. I seated this couple at a table that was half a booth, but the husband wanted a whole table. So I moved him over there, but his wife wanted the booth. So he yelled at her to move over, and then he started cursing at me for ruining his lunch. He left his table so messy because he knew I had to clean it. Like he smeared food on the table, for God's sake. He was still a regular and always tipped like crap, so the waiters hated him. Story 36. So my first retail job was in the crappiest mall of my city, near that sketchy neighborhood. You know the one. And I worked in one of those movie and music stores. Remember CDs? Anyway, we had extensive policies on dealing with theft and robbery. This one day, middle of the afternoon, sun is shining, moms with strollers in the mall, this guy in a purple suit with white face paint comes in screaming, "He's the Joker," waving a small knife around. He starts shoving random DVDs down his pants, then screams at me and my coworkers to open the register. But I can't really cause he's leaning over the counter, waving this knife around the till. He can't reach us, so he starts trying to lift the whole till up, which is not a super light thing. Then the cops appear running down the hallway towards my store, so this guy turns to get out of Dodge. Since his pants are full of DVDs, they kind of start sliding off though. So he's running, but His pants are falling down, and then the cops just crushed him to the ground. Later, I found out he'd been drinking hairspray, which I'm still a bit confused on. Sorry, I know it's not a customer story, but it's about a guy at retail. Story 37. I worked retail for all of a month and a half as a second job. Everything about that experience, not just the customers, were crap. Worst customer, it's a Black Friday. I'm part of the signage team, not a cashier. I have no login ID, no ability to take money, etc. This older woman comes up to me and demands I open a register to cash her out. I explain not my job, I do not have that ability, and if she will just step in line to one of the all the ones open in store, they will be happy to help her. Since it was Black Friday outside of jewelry, the only cashiers that were open were those along the outer rim of the building to prevent lines in the middle of the store. Not good enough for that lady, she gets loud, starts trying to physically drag me to register. She was old and much smaller than me, so that got her nowhere. She starts yelling about customer service. I tell she can stand by a register and a manger will come talk to her. My manger was quite the Karen and just left that woman standing there till one of the cashier section managers decided to take it about 45 minutes later. That woman would have been out the door a long time ago, but it was worth being angry than being fast, I guess.